I'm Pier-Philippe Chevigny. I'm the director of Rebel, and I'm talking with Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz.
Everyone, I have the absolute honor and the privilege of the company of Pier-Philippe Chevigny.
Yes.
Now, what people don't understand is I have actually just gone through trying to work out how to make sure I got that right for you. So thank you for joining me on Hellblazer Biz. I really appreciate it. Obviously, to talk about your new film, Rebel, the film short.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
No, it's great. It's nice to meet you. And as I say, I've seen the film, so I'm really keen to talk to you about it because it was a powerful message that gets put across in it. To be fair,
Thanks.
No, you're welcome. I was just been talking. I find short films are great, and I'm going to ask you a question on this in a minute because I'll ask you the question now. Actually, Pierre,
Go ahead.
How difficult is it for you to write a short film, as in get that story across into a short film?
It's the most difficult thing ever, man. It's like doing a short film I think is just as much work as doing a feature film. Mm-hmm. But then you have the challenge to be like really, really synthetic. It has to like have a beginning, middle, and end and all make sense within 15 minutes. It's really super hard. And, I've just finished writing my first feature actually. And I actually think it was easier to write the feature than it was to write any of my shorts because you have to condense so much in so little time, and to make it effective is really, really hard.
That's what I thought. To be fair, that's what I've not made one, so I did think that would actually, that might be a good answer there. I guess because with a feature, you, as I say, spread the whole story out. You can get character development and stuff. But saying that though, in the film that we've talking about, Rebel, it's or Rebel, whichever, it's
right.
Basically, you do have that character growth in there within, I think it's just over 10 minutes or just under 10 minutes there. But the whole story does get put across very, very well. And there's the message. You're welcome. And the message is very, very strong as well. And it's very poignant for this time that we're in at the moment, I guess. Right. I mean, obviously, this is between Canada and the US. Which is where this one's based. But obviously, I know for myself in the UK, we've got exactly the same because we've got people fleeing the channel from France over to the English channel, and people are trying to turn around and say, send them back. And it's like, really?
Right. It's the same all over the world, right?
It is. It's everywhere. A terrible, terrible situation that people have got, that they have. My view on it is the fact that what situation were they in? How do they feel internally? In order to have to flee and risk your life, your family's lives,
right?
To flee and just, just to get away and just find and start that new life somewhere else, because that's not an easy decision, and it's not cheap either because people are getting ripped off, and that's one of the biggest crimes going. So, what was your inspiration for doing this story? That's a long way of asking that question.
Right. Rebel's a film about the rise of right-wing extremism in Quebec. Quebec is the French part of Canada, for those who don't know. And historically, Quebec has always been very left-leaning, always only elected center or left-wing government, which is unique in North America. Right? That's the only place where that takes place. But then for the past 5 years or so, there's been an increase in right-wing militia groups, which is something, again, we didn't have before. Something like the KKK in the States or the alt-right movement that didn't exist before here. But what happened is in 2017, when the U.S. Suspended a program called the TPS, Temporary Protected Status, which allowed migrants to live and work in the U.S. while awaiting for the refugee status to be confirmed. Yeah. When they suspended that, it's created a panic within the migrant community in the U.S. And all of a sudden, people started fleeing the U.S. and tried to cross the border into Canada illegally to ask for refugee status here. And between 2017 and just about right before COVID hit, about 40,000 people crossed the border that way. Wow. And that has really ignited the fire of right-wing extremism. And we started seeing these weird militia groups that would organize and train, survivalist techniques in the wood and and do demonstrations at the border and all that kind of stuff. And that was something we never seen before. Like, that doesn't exist in Quebec. And I thought that was worrying. And like, all of my short films are based on social issues. I will do like a lot of research, very broad research. And out of that, like, research will, at one point, I'll have just a spark of an idea for a fictional story. And that's when I'll start writing the story. And in that case with Rebel, no, it's the story of right-wing extremism, but told through the eyes of a 6 or 7-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And that spark came from, like, after the very first big demonstration that these groups did in Quebec City. One of the newspapers had for its front page the picture of a 6 or 7-year-old boy that was waving a flag with La Meute's logo on it, La Meute being the name of one of those militia groups. And I thought to myself, like, that kid doesn't understand the politics at all. He's just there because he's following his parents. And then, like, why would you even bring your child to a march against immigration? That seemed like really, really absurd, but also fascinating in a way. And I thought it'd be interesting to tell the story of a kid that, is being raised within that context, doesn't really have, the maturity to understand the politics, but then will witness something that will trigger his understanding of what this is all about. And that's what Rebel is, basically.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very, that's a, I don't know whether just spoil it or not, because if we talk about it, it's going to ruin it for everyone.
Right. And it's so short. I mean, it's 50 minutes. So if you say too much, like, you're ruining the whole experience. But
exactly. Exactly. I'm not going to say anything about about that type of thing. But that moment and that symbolism, it's a very big symbol, which comes towards the beginning and obviously at the end as well, which is where the rebel comes from. Without going into obviously the detail of it. And that to me is very, very important, because it is I think it's quite scary. I didn't know that actually about Quebec. I will tell that about the right wing movement. I know we've had it here. It seems to come up everywhere in the UK, and sadly, and I know there's probably some people who'll troll me for what I'm about to say. This is my view. It's not your view. It's just, this is my view. Certain president who we've just got rid of in America fueled it. Big style. We've seen that. I mean, I think so many people agree with it anyway. But if anyone's out there who likes him, then that's your prerogative. That's fine. I'm not going to knock you for it. But in my view, he fueled a lot of it, and which by redacting that clause.
Right. That's part of the context of the whole story, actually, because like that came from their administration, suspending the TPS. That's what really created the whole migrant surge that, once again, like in Europe, you've had the migrant crisis for a few years now, but in Quebec, we didn't really have that experience. We were like watching that from afar, and then all of a sudden, like, people start fleeing and coming into the country. Of course, that's super destabilizing, and just as much as I would like to welcome as many people as possible, there are consequences to U.S. policies all over the world, and like, being so close neighbors, like, we're the first, like, to have the effects of their decisions. So
exactly, I was going to say as well, because you can see that side of things, which is where you're trying to get across in the film as well, and you do, is without obviously the right wing side of it, but that you do. There are economic issues regarding exactly like you said, like from American policy and stuff. That's caused economic issues, because you've 40,000 people coming into Quebec now. It's a big place, but the economy's not. It's fine. There's places they can settle and stuff, which is great. But it's not a problem. That's not a problem. But you can see where people are thinking, well, hang on a minute, it's going to wreck the economy, because that's how I'll liken it to the UK, because that's what all the people, or not all the people, what the gammons we call them, because they just
some people anyway, right?
Yeah, they get hot-headed about it all. They're the ones, they're the same things. They're going to come here, they're going to take the jobs, they're going to ruin the economy. No, they don't actually. They actually work really damn hard when they get here, because that's all they want to do, is start a new family and a new life.
Exactly.
It's the impact, and that's exactly where you just mentioned and talked about the impact of, like, a policy of another country. I'll not mention America again, but it is directly in this film. America is
totally. It's implicated for sure. That's part of what the story's about, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So pushes across and it damages other people, other countries. And it's not just other countries, it's those people, because you've got that family, one of many families, I will say, without trying to do this without ruining the film, Pierre.
Oh, right. Well, it's out there anyway, right? It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. So might as well just say it's about immigration. So
yeah. But
you've
got the family in the woods who are running for their life, and running to try and start this new life. And you've got, I really did see the beginning because I was quite taken aback, and then I realised because I knew what the film was about. When you got the little boy and Alex, is it 6-year-old Alex, and he's playing happily at home with his little GI Joe or whatever it is, and his dad comes across as a really loving guy, and which doesn't necessarily mean just because he's right wing he's not. He's been family loving, family bringing his family up, and then I got a glimpse of his tattoos there, and I was like, oh, hang on a minute, they look familiar to me. And that's what I was thinking. And then the hair like mine. I'll just say mine's not that way. Mine's because I really got bored last week with my hair, and I sat with scissors, and then it got too short, and I was like, oh no.
You gotta clip it over, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's why mine. But yeah, you see that in the film, in the short, and you start getting the picture of it because you can hear him on the phone talking, and poor little Alex is just playing happily, and going through there, and you've got that symbolism, which I'm not going to ruin it for people. We've got that symbolism there he talks about, and his dad's contradicting him, and the words that came out of his mouth for that were very, very telling.
Yeah, of course. It doesn't make sense at first. You don't really know what this, especially if you don't know what the film's about at all. Yeah. Like if you read what the storyline is, if you read the logline before, maybe it cues you in a little bit. But when I wrote the film, the idea was to have, the audience not know anything about where this is going. So yeah, the idea was just to like turn this in a way into a suspense. Like you don't really know where this is going. It's really mysterious at first. And like I said, like the idea was to tell the story of a character who's oblivious to what's going on around him, who doesn't understand the politics. And then we'll see something that makes him understand. But I wanted the audience to feel the same thing as him.
Yeah.
That meaning like to be really oblivious to the context around him. And then little by little, as the kid begins to understand, then the audience also begins to understand, which is why the film is shot the way it is. Yeah. Like at first it's all handheld cameras, and it's very long takes just focused on the boy. And like the militia groups are there, but they're in the background. They're out of focus, out of frame. If you're not really paying attention, you might not even notice them at some point. Like you're just watching a kid playing
in the woods. Yeah.
But then the more the story progresses, the film becomes more edited, and we follow Alex's point of view, and we get to like see and look all around us, and then we understand at the same time as him. And if you go back and watch it again, then it all, like the opening scene starts to make much more sense if you get the context of what's going on afterwards.
Yeah, of course. Definitely, which is kind of probably where I thought of it from, is because to be fair, when I was watching, I wouldn't have thought, but you're right. The cinematography and the way you have filmed that is very, very clever, because you do follow Alex and seeing it through the eyes of a 6-year-old innocent boy who is experiencing it, because he's just got nothing but love for his dad and his mum, and you see, and you grow the confusion in his eyes when he's and the comprehension when he's trying to comprehend what's happening, and especially when it's someone his own age as well. And I think that's the click moment for him when he's like, but you can right? Yeah, and you can really see that, because that's that moment where it hits Alex, and he's like, hang on a minute. But she's like me,
exactly.
and that's all kids are. I mean, I love that. There's that little meme, isn't there? I think it's a little two little kids together, and it says, "What's it? Racism's not. You're not born with being a racist. It's grown into you." And this film shows that exactly. And that's your point. Is how
like nature versus nurture. Of course, like I don't think people are like fundamentally bad or evil or anything. If you grow up within that context. And actually that's one of the main inspiration. There was an open letter by a guy named Derek Black, who's like the son of a prominent like white supremacist leader. And he wrote an open letter in the New York Times explaining why he left the movement, because like he was really involved with his father. He was like his right-hand man. He was doing everything, all the work with him. And he felt growing up that it was just the right thing to do. And he truly believed that he was doing this because it's what was best for his family, like to protect his race or whatever, because he grew up within the movement. He never got to question it. But then he got into college and he met people from other cultural backgrounds, and he could not understand why they would fear him. Right. Because like he was never in a position to ever get the chance to question the movement and reflect that it might be wrong, you know. So I thought that was really interesting to have that kind of perspective of someone who's like, you know, he grew up within the ideology, never got to question it, but maybe one day he'll get to question it, and then what happens? You know, that's kind of what Rebel's about also.
Yeah, and the questioning of what happens, that's what is the most important thing. It's like, you know, if you look at World War II, for example, and obviously the big, you know, Hitler and stuff like that, it's not the fact that all these people followed him, it's what made them follow, and why weren't they question, you know, what made it so powerful that they didn't question why they followed and things. And again, it's just just the last 4 years, that's all I've ever seen on TV. It's like, why aren't you questioning? Why can't you question? Why can't you question what's coming out of someone's mouth? Why can't you question? That's not, well, obviously lots of people do, but it's like, why is that? Why are people still being drawn to that? Why you understand?
Exactly. Why? And that's also like one of the things when I was doing my research. You know, I was expecting people to be involved in those militia groups to be like neo-Nazi skinheads or like really evil, stereotypical people, but that's not who they are at all. They're everyday normal people. Like I could recognize like my aunts and my uncles, and they're like soccer moms and, you know, normal people just taking their kids along because they truly believe that's the right thing to do. But then you get to question, like, just as you said, to your point, like who's believing that really, and why aren't you questioning it? You know, to me, it's like, it's really, really a worrying sign, you know, to see that, you know, there are neo-Nazi skinheads marching against immigration, but you would expect that. What you don't expect is everyday normal people to also follow those beliefs. And that's like the signal to me that something was wrong with like the state of our society, for sure.
Definitely. And again, a Rebel, the film, shows that, because the people involved in it, they're not that way. You know, they're not, like you say, they're not all the fascist, you know, like you stereotypical people. They're not at all. You have got the mum there who's like, you know, nurturing and looking after the little children, and the other people there, they're just you wouldn't expect it. Some of them maybe look a little bit, one or two, but not all. You know, they're just regular like you and me, and and that's what this hatred and this society is brought out of some people. It's not hate. It's the way they've just been brought up and listened to all the rhetoric and listened to all of the.
And then there's the problem of social media also, because that's a big chunk of what's happening also in the States with the alt-right movement, is that, you know, social media creates these echo chambers that you're only fed the opinions that you believe in. And usually, you know, the most radical opinions are the ones that get the most reaction. So algorithms tend to put them forward, which is why like we're so polarized to each side of the far left and the far right. You know, that's a symptom of social media. And it's not that surprising to be seeing like the context that we have now, because like our whole entire lives are revolved around social media now. So
I think social media is probably one of, I mean, I'm saying it, I use it quite a lot every day, but I would say it is the worst thing that's ever happened. It was originally, you know, I remember Friends Reunited, that's what it started as, and it was just to, you know, get back in touch with school friends. But then obviously all the Facebook and the Twitter and everything started then, and it is the worst thing possible. It really is, because it polarizes people. People just sit behind a keyboard and things that are in their head that they would never ever speak to you about in person. They feel that they're protected because they've got this keyboard. And again, the biggest keyboard warrior, thankfully gone now, from Twitter as well. Right. The one who polarized a lot of it was that, and the opinions which came out, and that spurred even more. You're right, it's a vitriol of hatred between, and it's not just that side. I was at both sides, like you just said. It's, you know, the left or the right,
totally,
there's just a massive, massive divide. Which is hope, you know, what we're trying to repair now.
Can we just like cool down a little bit and try to listen to each other, like for maybe just a few years now? Let's give that a shot.
Exactly, because even I find, even on social media, even if no matter what kind of comment you make or what kind of thing you put on it, I know I'll delete it straight away, because if if I put something on, and I'll know it's not controversial or anything like that, but but I'll put something on, then all of a sudden I'll just get a torrent of abuse, and it's like,
right.
Just let someone have an opinion. Obviously, as long as it's not a radical, really, really radical one. It's
offensive or anything.
No, nothing. Mine's not offensive opinions or anything like that. But it's just an opinion. It's like, I think the Star Wars prequels I didn't like, something like that. But then even that has turned into something now where it's just like, it's a nightmare.
It's toxic.
It is very, very toxic, and that's your film, which I'm going to bring it back to again. Obviously, it's Rebel does bring that out, and it brings out that the naivety, and it shows the importance of what we do and how we bring up our children, because our children are the future, and it's our children are the ones who are going to stop this and are going to bring that divide, that sort of breach that gap that we've got.
Exactly, like if there's a message, I don't think there's a message per se, but I think the film kind of ends on a very hopeful note, because, like you said, it's kind of like putting faith in the next generation's ability to solve this mess.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think, like, without spoiling anything, but for sure, I would like to think that the way Alex reacted has influenced his father also, because, like, his father is obviously very aware that his son was affected by what he witnessed. Yeah. And so you'd like him to maybe challenge his own beliefs, just from seeing the example of his own son. And that's what, like, the last frame of the film kind of hints at. But then again, like, it's up to interpretation. And if you want to believe that maybe the father scolded the son afterwards, that's possible also. But I like the more hopeful interpretation, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. And that again, that's why, because it draws you right back to the beginning, and that's that which you say, that there is that message and there is that symbol, and it is a symbol of hope. That's how I saw the film, and that's how I saw the end of it. It was a symbol of hope. In the fact that Alex is that generation now, and exactly like you just said, he can change it for himself, but he can also change those around him and who love him, by trying to show them what's right, and why certain things should be, why you can do, for example, why 40,000 refugees can come into Quebec and they can live, perfectly happily, and they won't bring the economy down as Canada for that, and that you need to have them refuge. Because, I mean, again, I'm going to go back to how fearful they were that just America, the land of the free, literally, is one rule of the TWS thing being taken away, scared that many people that they feared for their lives in America, where they'd gone because they wanted to build this new free life for themselves. But they feared because of that right wing side of things, which with social media, I would say it was probably exactly what we just said, has built all that up. So they were so scared because of what's being said, what's going around, and the propaganda was the word I'm trying to look for, that kind of thing. And they felt they had to run from there. And it's reminiscent of Europe now with the UK. It's reminiscent of, how long ago now? 80 years ago, is it now? So, that's bad. 80 years ago, World War II now, of the Jewish people having to flee Germany, and Polish people and gypsies and artists fleeing Germany at that point in time, because
it's like we haven't learned anything from history.
Exactly. That's what, people say, that you should learn from history, but then they know, but they never do. We just repeat the same cycles over and over again. So Rebel, Alex in Rebel, he's the future, because my son, my 14-year-old, he's the future. They're the ones who we've got to change it. We change our views for them to change their views, and then that can make the world and stop.
For sure, like that's what the film's about. Also, like, for sure, I'm much more progressive and open-minded. Like, and especially like Quebec there's another degree of complexity because of the linguistic situation here and the nationalist movement in Quebec. Like, this is pretty consensual amongst Quebecers that if we don't protect our language, our culture might disappear. So
right.
there's that level of complexity also. So how like to accommodate like immigration without like having it be like a threat to your cultural identity, because we're such a minority in this ocean of like English speakers in North America. So it makes everything much more difficult. So yeah, for sure. But like my parents, they were brought up like in this very nationalist, context in the 60s and 70s. And so they have a perspective towards immigration, which is somewhat more, scared than maybe I am. I'm much more open-minded and progressive towards immigration. And I'm sure that my kids will also be much more open-minded and progressive. So then again, that's what the film says, like one generation after the other, we can fix those issues. And it might take like a couple more generations for it to be really behind us. But I think that's the horizon in front of us for sure.
Definitely. Excellent. Yeah. I can. But you're right. It goes, I think, a few generations, and we'll have it sorted. But it's a very powerful message, and I did enjoy the film. Enjoy as much as you can.
Thanks,
enjoy watching a film like that. So
it's not especially a super pleasant and fun experience, I think. But I'm happy when like it made people think that that's the bottom line. That's what I hope the film achieves.
Exactly, and that's where I love a film that makes me think, and I've watched that one. Is a very good one for making you think and realize, and especially when you think about twists. No, you're welcome. Before I wrap this up, Pierre, is there anything you would like to say for people who are watching or listening? I'll say I apologize for wrapping it up so soon. I'm loving chatting to you, but
sure, no problem. You can go ahead and watch Rebel. It's pretty much available everywhere, free. It's on YouTube. It's on Vimeo. It's on Short of the Week. If you're in a French-speaking European country like France or Belgium, it's on Arte. So it's pretty much everywhere. If you're in Eastern Europe, it's on HBO Europe as well. So everywhere you can just Google it, Rebel, and you'll find it. Go ahead and watch it, share it.